Today, bodybuilding has become mainstream. It is no longer the exclusive pastime of a handful of enthusiasts who spend their evenings in sweaty basements with rusty iron. No, bodybuilding has entered the spotlight of global culture. It is marketed, advertised, consumed. Just look around. In shop windows, mannequins are now displayed not just as figures wearing clothes, but as sculpted bodies with six-pack abs. Open Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, and the algorithm will immediately throw you countless fitness channels, motivational speeches, training splits, diet plans, and transformations of ordinary people who turned into athletes. Even in Hollywood movies, the image of a muscular hero has become almost obligatory. Muscles are no longer an option, they are expected. The fitness industry today is a billion-dollar machine. Everything exists for the modern athlete. Gyms on every corner, apps on your phone that tell you when and how to train, online coaches who write personalized programs, and supplements promising to make your muscles grow faster than ever. There are protein bars in gas stations, shakes in supermarkets, creatine, amino acids, pre-workouts, fat burners, recovery powders. The assortment is so massive that it satisfies every possible demand. Even people who have never picked up a dumbbell know two basic rules: protein builds muscle, and chicken breast is the base of every diet. On the surface, it looks as if bodybuilding has become so easy that results should be inevitable. Never before has there been such a perfect ecosystem for training. Want to get stronger? There's a gym 2 blocks away. Want to gain muscle? Buy a mass gainer online, and it'll arrive tomorrow. Want to look like your favorite influencer? They've already posted their entire program for free. It feels like there is no barrier left. Just take it and do it. And yet, reality paints a very different picture. Despite all this abundance of opportunities, information, and resources, the majority of people are far from fit. Gyms are overcrowded in January, when the motivation of New Year's resolutions burns bright, but by February, they are half empty. Meal prep containers are bought in bulk, only to gather dust in kitchen cabinets. Gym memberships are purchased enthusiastically, but used for just a handful of sessions. This is the paradox of abundance. The easier it is to start, the fewer people actually do. Comfort, instead of pushing us forward, makes us complacent. We reassure ourselves, I can start anytime. And precisely because of that, we don't start today. Now hold that picture in your mind, the modern Western world of bodybuilding, dripping with resources and choices. And then turn your gaze to Africa, a place where gyms are not glowing, air-conditioned buildings filled with polished machines, but often a small dirt yard with a bar welded from scrap metal, where there are no supplement shops on every corner, no endless shelves of whey protein and energy drinks, where there are no glamorous influencers handing you 10-step programs. There is only one factor: pure desire, and this desire creates miracles. It makes people build gyms out of nothing, craft dumbbells from stones and cement, turn car rims into barbell plates. It pushes them to train in the blazing sun, in the rain, on bare ground. And this is the contrast we must look at. In the West, people are surrounded by comfort and excuses. In Africa, people are surrounded by hardship and still find a way. When we talk about training conditions in Africa, we are talking about a world that looks almost alien compared to the polished gyms most of us know. For many African bodybuilders, the gym is not a brightly lit building with mirrored walls, music playing in the background, and neatly aligned machines. It is a dusty backyard, an empty lot between houses, or a shaded corner under a tree. The gym might consist of a single barbell welded together from old scrap metal. The dumbbells might be 2 buckets filled with cement and tied to a stick. The bench might be an uneven plank laid across stones. But what strikes you when you look closer is not the poverty of the environment, but the richness of creativity and determination. Where there is no access to factory-made equipment, people simply invent their own. Old car rims become weight plates. Pieces of rebar are welded into makeshift pull-up bars. Sandbags and rocks are used for resistance. Tires are turned into training tools. Nothing goes to waste. Every piece of metal, every chunk of concrete can become part of the workout. This is not just a story of scarcity. It is a story of ownership. When an athlete builds his own weights, he values them differently. That rough, uneven barbell is not just equipment. It is the product of his own effort, his own hands. And when he lifts it, he lifts not just weight, but the symbol of his persistence. That personal connection gives every repetition more meaning. Another feature of these environments is their openness. Training does not happen behind closed doors. It happens under the open sky, visible to neighbors, children, passers-by. That changes the atmosphere. The gym becomes a social hub. It is not only about muscles, but about community. People train together, encourage each other, share tips, shout motivation. Older athletes show the younger ones how to lift. Teenagers are inspired by the discipline of adults. Children watch and dream that one day they too will be strong. Compare this to the Western gym, where people often isolate themselves with headphones, focused only on their own progress. In Africa, the lack of luxury fosters togetherness. Training becomes a collective act. The gym is a family, not a service. And all of this unfolds in conditions that would discourage most people. There is no air conditioning. When the sun is scorching, the iron burns to the touch. When it rains, the ground turns to mud, but training goes on. When night falls and there is no electricity, training continues in the dark, sometimes under the dim light of a street lamp or the moon. There are no excuses. This is the true essence of bodybuilding. Not luxury, but struggle. Not equipment, but willpower. Watching African bodybuilders train in such environments is like stepping back to the roots of the sport itself, to the times when bodybuilding was not about glamour or marketing, but about iron, sweat, and determination. And to truly grasp this spirit, we need to highlight the contrast, because the gap between what we consider normal and what they call normal could not be wider. In the Western world, bodybuilding is surrounded by abundance. We argue about which protein powder tastes better, whether we should do push-pull legs or upper-lower splits, whether we should train fasted or after a pre-workout meal. We complain when the gym is too crowded, when the air conditioning isn't working, when the Wi-Fi is down. We treat comfort as a necessity. Now, imagine Africa. There, comfort does not exist. The gym is the street. The equipment is improvised. The diet is limited to whatever is available. And yet, despite all of this, people train. The contrast is not just striking, it is humbling. In the West, bodybuilding often feels like a service you purchase. Pay your membership fee, and you get access to machines, showers, lockers, music. If something isn't right, you complain, the bench is broken, the weights aren't racked properly, the gym is too hot. In Africa, there is no one to complain to. There is only your choice, to train or not. And most choose to train. Heat is not an excuse. It is the default. Rain is not a reason to cancel. It is simply part of the day. Lack of electricity does not end training. It just changes the time of day you work out. No gym nearby? Then the gym is the open ground. No weights? Then you build them. This mindset turns every workout into a small act of defiance against circumstance. What Western athletes often forget is that bodybuilding, at its core, has always been about this. The pioneers of the sport, men like Eugen Sandow or Reg Park, did not start with polished machines. They started with raw iron, simple tools, and relentless effort. In many ways, African athletes today are closer to those roots than anyone training in a modern commercial gym. And this is why their stories are so powerful. They remind us of what bodybuilding really means. It is not the shiny logo of a supplement brand, not the perfect Instagram photo under gym lighting. It is the discipline of showing up when conditions are against you. It is the creativity of finding a way when there is no way provided. It is the strength of will that says, if the world gives me nothing, I will build it myself. This contrast should not make us pity African athletes. On the contrary, it should inspire us. They have far less, and yet they achieve so much. We, with all our comforts, often achieve far less because we let excuses dominate us. To fully appreciate their determination, we need to look closer at the very details of their training environment, at the self-made equipment, the open-air gyms, and the communities they form. Because it is in those details that the true spirit of African bodybuilding comes alive. One of the most striking images of African bodybuilding is the equipment, or rather, the creativity that replaces equipment. In the West, we argue about whether to buy rubber-coated dumbbells or iron ones, whether to use Olympic bars or specialty bars, whether machines are better than free weights. In Africa, those choices do not exist. If you want equipment, you build it. Car rims welded to pipes become barbell plates. Plastic containers filled with cement become dumbbells. Heavy tires are dragged, lifted, flipped. Thick logs are hoisted like barbells. Even simple rocks are pressed overhead or held for weighted squats. Every piece of discarded material, metal, stone, rubber, can be reborn as training gear. This equipment is far from perfect. The weights are rarely balanced. The grip may be rough or unstable. The cement may crumble with use. But in a way, this imperfection makes training even more demanding. Athletes must focus harder to control the uneven loads. Their stabilizing muscles are tested more. They learn balance, precision, and adaptability. In Western gyms, machines are designed to remove all these challenges, to isolate the muscle. In Africa, the very instability of the homemade equipment adds to the workout. And beyond function, there is meaning. When an athlete lifts a dumbbell, he molded himself out of cement. It carries more than just physical weight. It carries the weight of his effort, his ingenuity, his refusal to accept limitations. That dumbbell is not bought, it is earned. Every rep with it is an act of pride. Often, this creativity does not stop at individual equipment. Whole gyms are built in this spirit. A few men gather, pool resources, weld bars, pour cement, erect pull-up stations. Over time, what was once just a corner of empty land becomes a training ground, complete with benches, racks, and weights. These gyms may not have air conditioning or mirrors, but they have something far greater: soul. They are built by the people, for the people. What's more, the process of building the gym itself creates community. A man who welds a squat rack feels a sense of ownership over it. A boy who helps pour cement for dumbbells feels invested in the training to come. Training is no longer just about the body, it is about belonging. In some cases, these homemade gyms evolve. They start as rough collections of scrap equipment, but over time, with enough dedication, they grow into more organized training spaces. Sometimes local businesses or communities rally to support them. What began with a few car rims and concrete blocks becomes a local fitness center. This spirit of invention sends a powerful message. Bodybuilding is not about consumption, but creation. You do not need to buy strength, you can build it. And in Africa, this principle is lived every day. But it is not just the equipment that defines the African bodybuilding spirit. It is also the setting, the open air, the weather, the raw exposure to the elements. To truly understand, we must step into those outdoor gyms, under the blazing sun and pouring rain. In the West, the gym is a controlled environment. The temperature is regulated. The lighting is perfect. The music is curated. Everything is designed to create comfort and predictability. Training becomes almost clinical, a sterile environment where nothing interferes with your focus. In Africa, training is the opposite. The ceiling is the sky. The floor is the earth. The soundtrack is not music from speakers, but the sounds of wind, rain, birds, and the clanging of metal against concrete. The gym is inseparable from nature, and that changes everything. Imagine training in 40 degrees Celsius heat, where every piece of iron burns your skin when you touch it. Imagine doing push-ups in the mud when the rains turn the ground to sludge. Imagine squatting under the weight of a cement barbell as dust blows into your face. This is everyday reality for many African bodybuilders, and yet these conditions do not discourage them. On the contrary, they forge resilience. The athlete learns to adapt. Heat is no longer an obstacle, it is part of the workout. Rain is not a reason to cancel, it is resistance training of a different kind. Darkness is not the end of the day, it is a chance to train by moonlight. Training under the open sky builds not only muscles, but character. When you expose yourself daily to discomfort, you become harder, tougher, less fragile. You stop waiting for the right conditions. You realize that the only condition that matters is your will. Everything else is noise. There is also something profoundly social about open-air gyms. Because they are not hidden behind walls, they become visible to the whole neighborhood. Children watch, teenagers linger, curious. Adults stop to admire or encourage. The workout becomes a public act, a performance of discipline and strength. This visibility inspires others. Young people see what's possible. Communities feel pride in their athletes. The act of training becomes contagious. Western gyms often isolate people. Each person trains in their own bubble, headphones on, eyes in the mirror, focused on self. In Africa, training is collective, public, part of the community. The open-air setting erases barriers. Strangers spot each other, spectators cheer. Everyone is part of the atmosphere. And let us not forget the physical effect of training outdoors. Athletes become accustomed to working in varied conditions: heat, cold, wind, dust. Their bodies adapt. Their endurance grows. Their immune systems strengthen. The environment itself becomes a training partner, adding stress and challenge that no machine could replicate. When you watch African athletes train outdoors, you realize that they are not just building muscle. They are building resilience, adaptability, spirit. Each set is not just physical, it is a small victory over discomfort. And those victories accumulate into a mindset, one that says, "Nothing can stop me." But beyond the training itself, what truly elevates this culture is the sense of togetherness. These outdoor gyms are not just places of work, they are communities, families, tribes. To understand African bodybuilding fully, we must see the culture of the community that surrounds it. One of the most beautiful aspects of African bodybuilding is the community. In the West, when you walk into a gym, you often find a room full of individuals. Everyone has headphones in. Everyone is locked into their own routine, scrolling through playlists, following their own program, barely acknowledging those around them. The gym feels crowded, yet strangely lonely. In Africa, the gym feels alive. Even if it's just a dusty lot with a few cement dumbbells and a pull-up bar made from rebar, it buzzes with energy because people are there together. The atmosphere is more like a gathering than a workout session. Athletes cheer each other on. Someone fails a rep, and the others rush to help, shouting encouragement. A young boy struggles with form, and an older man steps in to guide him. No one is a stranger. This culture of community transforms bodybuilding from an individual pursuit into a collective mission. When you know others are depending on your presence, you don't skip training. Even if you feel tired, you show up because you don't want to let the group down. Training becomes a ritual, almost sacred, and everyone takes part in it. This shared responsibility also builds resilience. If someone struggles with nutrition, others offer advice. If a lifter doesn't have enough money for food, sometimes the community will share meals. Victories are celebrated together. When one athlete makes progress, everyone cheers. When one enters a competition, the whole community feels proud. The social aspect of African gyms also makes them powerful forces for change. In neighborhoods where young people are vulnerable to crime, idleness, or despair, the gym becomes an anchor. It offers structure, discipline, a place to belong. Instead of roaming the streets, teenagers gather at the gym, watching, learning, imitating. They see strength and discipline rewarded with respect. The gym becomes not only a place of physical training, but a school of life. What is remarkable is how natural this feels. There are no contracts, no paid trainers, no organized mentorship programs. It happens organically. The older teach the younger because they feel it is their duty. The younger respect the older because they see the results of their discipline. This flow of knowledge and respect holds the culture together. When you compare this to the isolation of Western gyms, you begin to see why African bodybuilding carries such power. Muscles are not built in silence, but in laughter, shouting, camaraderie. Strength is not just measured in kilograms lifted, but in the number of people you inspire. And this sense of community is vital, because the challenges go beyond the lack of equipment. Perhaps the greatest obstacle of all is nutrition. Without proper food, how can one hope to build muscle? And yet, African bodybuilders push forward despite diets that would make most athletes in the West despair. If muscles are built from protein, then the African bodybuilder's biggest enemy is scarcity. In the West, we drown in protein options. Chicken breast, steak, fish, eggs, protein shakes, bars, all affordable, all available in every supermarket. We obsess over grams per kilogram, over timing, over amino acid profiles. We argue whether plant protein is complete or not. In Africa, the diet is starkly different. The staple foods are corn porridge, ugali, beans, rice, yams, cassava. These provide calories, but not enough protein for muscle growth. Meat is expensive. Milk is a luxury. Eggs are not guaranteed. For many athletes, animal protein appears only once in a while, if at all. For those living far from the coast, even fish is rare. This creates an enormous challenge. By Western standards, it is nearly impossible to build muscle without consistent protein intake. And yet, African athletes prove otherwise. They may progress more slowly, but they progress nonetheless. They squeeze every possible gram of protein from their diets. Beans, lentils, peanuts, seeds, all combined creatively to maximize amino acids. Sometimes athletes raise chickens just to ensure a few eggs per week. Sometimes communities pool resources to buy food together. Still, the reality is harsh. Nigerian bodybuilder Azukumhe Omo once admitted he often trains on an empty stomach. The biggest problem is food. Many times, I don't have money for meat or milk. Sometimes I go to train without breakfast. Imagine hearing this in the West. We are told never to train fasted, never to miss our post-workout shake, to eat every 3 hours. In Africa, those luxuries do not exist. Hunger is part of life, and training continues regardless. What makes their progress so impressive is precisely this. They succeed where everything is stacked against them. They carve muscle from diets that would seem hopeless to us. They grow strong while eating mostly carbohydrates, while missing meals, while living without supplements. Their results are not powered by powders, but by persistence. And this persistence carries a message. When you see an African bodybuilder with defined muscles, you realize those muscles were built not on protein shakes and grilled chicken, but on beans, porridge, and willpower. It makes you question your own excuses. If they can train hungry and still grow, what right do we have to complain about lacking motivation when we have refrigerators full of food? Protein deficiency is not just a dietary issue. It is a test of spirit. It forces athletes to respect every bite, to plan every meal, to treat food not as a casual snack, but as fuel to be cherished. And this respect carries over into their training. Every rep matters. Every set is done with intensity, because resources are limited. This makes African bodybuilding not weaker, but stronger in essence. Their physiques are not just built from food, but from resilience. And to survive this challenge, they develop unique strategies, survival tactics for nutrition, turning scarcity into strength. African bodybuilders cannot rely on carefully crafted meal plans, macro tracking apps, or endless supplies of chicken and whey protein. Instead, they practice what can only be described as survival tactics in nutrition, strategies designed to maximize progress with minimal resources. The first tactic is timing. If an athlete manages to find meat, fish, or eggs, he plans his heaviest training session around that day. The rare surge of protein becomes fuel for the hardest workout, ensuring recovery and growth when the body can actually use it. Conversely, when food is scarce, the athlete adapts by lowering intensity, focusing on technique, or doing bodyweight training instead of heavy lifting. The second tactic is combining plant sources. On their own, beans, corn, or peanuts do not provide all the essential amino acids. But when combined, beans with corn, peanuts with seeds, lentils with rice, they create more complete proteins. African athletes discover these combinations by necessity, passing the knowledge around within their communities. The third tactic is strict prioritization. Food is treated like treasure. If there is only one portion of protein-rich food in the day, it is eaten after training. If there are just a few eggs, they are boiled and rationed across several meals, not eaten in one sitting. Every bite is calculated. Nothing is wasted. The fourth tactic is collective effort. Communities often pool money together to buy food in bulk. A single athlete might not be able to afford meat, but when 5 or 6 pitch in, they can share a meal that supports everyone's training. The community once again becomes the foundation that makes survival possible. These strategies show an incredible adaptation. Athletes are forced to be mindful of every calorie, every gram of protein. And paradoxically, this scarcity makes them more disciplined than many Western athletes who have an abundance of options. In the West, people binge, snack, skip meals, waste resources, because they know there will always be more tomorrow. In Africa, tomorrow is not guaranteed, and that pressure creates focus. The result is a mindset where nothing is taken for granted. Each workout is performed with intensity because the fuel behind it is scarce. Each improvement in physique is celebrated because it represents not just effort in the gym, but victory in daily survival. And perhaps the most powerful lesson here is this. Muscle is not built from supplements, but from persistence. Food is only one variable. Willpower, discipline, and adaptation are the constants. African bodybuilders prove this every day. But to truly appreciate their determination, we must look not only at their physical adaptations, but also at their state. Because hunger is not just a physical problem, it is a psychological one, and how they deal with it reveals the strength of their spirit. Hunger is a universal human experience, but for athletes in Africa, it is a daily reality and a defining part of their training journey. In the West, athletes obsess over meal timing, protein windows, and pre-workout snacks. In Africa, many train on empty stomachs. The question is not, what's the optimal pre-workout meal, but can I afford food today at all? This changes everything. Waking up without breakfast and still going to lift weights is not an occasional challenge. It is the norm. The dizziness, the fatigue, the gnawing emptiness in the stomach become familiar training partners. And yet, athletes show up anyway. This experience shapes psychology in profound ways. Hunger teaches humility. When every meal is uncertain, you learn to be grateful for even the simplest food, a bowl of beans, a handful of rice. Complaining disappears, replaced by appreciation. Hunger also teaches resilience. When you train while hungry, you learn that your body can endure far more than you thought. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You realize that discipline can overcome weakness. In fact, hunger becomes a test of authenticity. Why do you train? Is it for Instagram likes, or is it because you truly want to grow stronger? If you can train while your stomach growls, your motivation is real. There are no illusions, no vanity, only raw will. Psychologists say that scarcity sharpens focus. When resources are limited, the mind prioritizes what truly matters. African athletes embody this. They treat training as essential, even when their bodies scream for rest. They learn to channel discomfort into drive. Hunger no longer paralyzes them, it fuels them. There is also a deeper, almost spiritual dimension. Many athletes describe training hungry as a way of proving control over the body. Hunger is a primal force, demanding satisfaction. To resist it and still push through a workout is to declare mastery over self. It is a daily reminder, I am stronger than my circumstances. This mindset builds a resilience that extends far beyond the gym. If you can lift weights while underfed, you can face other hardships in life. Poverty, stress, uncertainty, all feel less overwhelming when you have proven to yourself that hunger cannot break you. In contrast, in the West, the smallest discomfort often becomes an excuse. Too tired, too busy, too stressed, too full, too hungry. Any reason is enough to skip training. African athletes show us another path. Discomfort is not the enemy, but the training ground for the soul. The psychology of hunger reveals the heart of African bodybuilding. It is not about luxury or perfection, but about endurance and spirit. And over time, this endurance becomes habit. Training ceases to be a question of motivation and becomes a non-negotiable part of life. Motivation is fleeting. It burns bright in the beginning, but fades quickly when life gets in the way. In the West, this truth is obvious. Gyms are crowded in January, nearly empty by March. People start diets with enthusiasm, then quit at the first obstacle. The cycle repeats endlessly. In Africa, bodybuilding cannot rely on motivation. Motivation is too fragile to survive hunger, heat, poverty, and hardship. What replaces it is discipline, and discipline, once forged, becomes habit. For African athletes, training is not a question of, do I feel like it today? It is as much a part of the day as working, eating, or sleeping. The idea of skipping is almost unthinkable. They know that if they miss one day, it will be harder to come back the next. And so they show up, rain or shine, fed or hungry, energized or exhausted. This is not to say that every workout is perfect. Some days are slow, some are heavy, some are weak. But consistency wins over intensity. The athlete builds his progress brick by brick, not in giant leaps, but in steady steps. This rhythm of daily effort becomes ingrained in the body and mind. It ceases to feel like a choice. It becomes identity. Teenagers in African neighborhoods grow up seeing this. They watch older athletes train every day. They absorb the lesson. Strength comes from persistence, not from excuses. Over time, the culture itself reinforces discipline. To skip training is to betray not only yourself, but the example set for others. Interestingly, the very lack of comfort strengthens discipline. In the West, people often depend on external factors: opening hours, climate control, machines, trainers. If any of these fail, the workout becomes optional. In Africa, none of those exist in the first place. There is no air conditioning to fail, no Wi-Fi to distract, no excuses to hide behind. The only thing that matters is the decision to act. This daily practice of discipline doesn't stop at the gym. It spills into life. An athlete who trains without fail learns to apply the same persistence to work, school, and family. He knows that progress comes not from bursts of effort, but from steady, reliable action. The result is that African bodybuilders are not just physically strong, they are mentally fortified. Their muscles are proof not only of effort, but of consistency in the face of hardship. And this is what earns them deep respect in their communities. People admire not only the physique, but the discipline behind it. Discipline becomes habit. Habit becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. This is the chain that transforms an ordinary person into an athlete, and an athlete into an inspiration. But the power of this habit doesn't remain private. Training in Africa is often public, which means every repetition, every set, every appearance at the gym carries weight beyond the individual. It carries responsibility. Responsibility to the community that watches and believes. In African bodybuilding, training is rarely hidden. The open-air gyms mean that workouts are visible to everyone. Children walking home from school, neighbors resting in the shade, friends passing by. Each set becomes more than personal exercise. It becomes a performance, a message, an example. For a young boy watching, the image is unforgettable. He sees men lifting heavy, straining, sweating, encouraging each other. He sees resilience, discipline, camaraderie. He may not understand the science of muscles, but he understands the value of effort. He thinks, if they can do this here, with nothing, then maybe I can too. For the athlete, this knowledge is powerful. He knows eyes are on him. He knows his presence at the gym means something beyond his own progress. If he skips training, it isn't just himself he lets down. It's the children who look up to him, the teenagers who see him as proof, the friends who draw motivation from his example. This sense of responsibility creates a powerful bond. In the West, athletes often isolate themselves. Training is private, progress is for the mirror or for Instagram. In Africa, progress is public. Every gain is shared, every effort is witnessed. This visibility makes the athlete accountable not just to himself, but to his entire community. And in return, the community offers respect. A man who trains every day, who shows discipline and perseverance, becomes admired not only for his physique, but for his character. He is treated with honor because he embodies qualities everyone values: strength, resilience, dedication. The gym under the sky becomes a stage, and the athlete becomes a local role model. This responsibility creates motivation stronger than any supplement or motivational speech, because it is no longer about you, it is about everyone watching. When fatigue strikes, when hunger gnaws, when excuses whisper, the thought of disappointing others pushes you forward. You lift not just for yourself, but for your brothers, your neighbors, your community. And this cycle continues. Those who are inspired today become the role models of tomorrow. A boy who once watched in awe grows into a man who trains under the same sun, and new children watch him in turn. Responsibility is passed down, generation to generation, turning bodybuilding into a tradition. This sense of responsibility is what makes African bodybuilding more than sport. It is culture. It is identity. It is proof that strength is not just personal, but collective. But how do these athletes learn to train without formal coaches, without endless tutorials and training guides? The answer lies in another unique aspect of African bodybuilding, the oral tradition of passing knowledge from one generation to the next. In the Western world, bodybuilding knowledge is everywhere. Open YouTube and you'll find thousands of tutorials on form, training splits, diet hacks, and supplement reviews. Buy a course online and you'll have a coach guiding you step by step. Visit a bookstore and you'll find shelves lined with nutrition and training manuals. Knowledge is abundant, so abundant, in fact, that many people collect programs without ever committing to one. In Africa, the story is different. Books are rare, courses are expensive, and the internet is not always accessible. But that does not mean athletes lack knowledge. Instead, they build their own system of education, one based on oral tradition, mentorship, and lived experience. It works like this. An older athlete discovers a better way to lift or eat. Maybe he learns that doing weighted pull-ups builds his back faster. Maybe he figures out how to combine beans with maize to get a fuller amino acid profile. He doesn't keep this to himself. He shares it with the younger ones. The knowledge spreads, tested not in theory, but in practice. This system creates a chain of mentorship. The experienced teach the inexperienced, not because they are paid, but because it is their duty. Respect flows naturally. The young look up to the strong, the disciplined, the persistent. Advice is not questioned because it comes from proof, from the muscles and endurance of those who give it. This way of passing knowledge turns the gym into more than a place of training. It becomes a school. Here, athletes learn not only about exercise and nutrition, but about discipline, patience, and respect. When an older athlete corrects a younger one's form, he is not just teaching technique, he is teaching responsibility. When he warns about overtraining, he is not just preserving muscles, he is teaching balance. Interestingly, this scarcity of information makes each piece of advice more valuable. In the West, where information is free and endless, people often ignore it. They scroll past one tip in search of another, never applying either. In Africa, advice is cherished because it is rare and because it comes with context and lived experience. And so, it is applied. The result is a collective body of knowledge that grows stronger with every generation. Each athlete is both student and teacher. Each discovery becomes a shared asset. Progress is communal, not individual. This oral tradition of bodybuilding creates resilience in another way too. It eliminates overcomplication. While Western athletes debate endlessly about optimal training frequency or supplementation timing, African athletes focus on the basics: push, pull, squat, eat what you can, rest when you can. And these basics, done consistently, produce results. This communal knowledge is one of the greatest strengths of African bodybuilding. It ensures that even without formal coaches or endless content, athletes still learn, grow, and improve. And it reinforces a culture where success is not isolated, but shared. But this culture also highlights an uncomfortable truth when we compare it to the West. Because if African athletes can thrive with so little, what excuse do we have with so much? That question leads us to a direct rebuke to the Western viewer. When we compare the worlds of bodybuilding in the West and in Africa, one emotion arises above all: shame. Because the Western viewer has every possible advantage, and yet often does nothing. Think about the average urban neighborhood. Within 1 kilometer, you might find 5 to 10 gyms. One is a 24/7 budget gym with low fees. Another is a luxury health club with saunas, pools, and trainers. There may be a CrossFit box, a calisthenics park, and a yoga studio nearby. Add to that the abundance of online resources, apps, and meal delivery services tailored for fitness. In short, you live in a world designed to make fitness accessible. And yet, what is the reality? Obesity rates climb, gym memberships go unused, people complain about lacking time, energy, or motivation. Excuses multiply while progress stagnates. Comfort has become the enemy. In Africa, the lack of comfort forces adaptation. In the West, the presence of comfort enables procrastination. When you know the gym will always be there tomorrow, why go today? When food is abundant, why respect it? When supplements are cheap, why discipline yourself? This abundance creates a paradox. With everything available, results should be inevitable. But abundance dulls urgency, comfort kills hunger, and excuses grow stronger than effort. Now, put that image side by side with the African athlete. He has no gym membership, no supplements, no diet apps. If he wants to train, he must lift cement blocks under the sun. If he wants to eat protein, he must hunt, farm, or pool money with friends. If he wants progress, he must fight for it every day. And yet, he shows up. He trains. He improves. He does what Western athletes with infinitely more resources refuse to do. The contrast is brutal. The rebuke is clear. The problem is not lack of time, food, or gyms. The problem is lack of will. The African athlete proves this daily. With nothing, he creates results. With everything, we create excuses. This should not depress us. It should wake us up. The African bodybuilder's message is not pity us. It is no excuses. If he can train in poverty, with hunger in his stomach and rusted iron in his hands, what excuse do we truly have? This is the first half of the rebuke, but the lesson runs deeper, because it is not only about gyms and food, it is about how a person responds to challenge. And in Africa, challenge is constant. In the West, it is optional. That difference explains everything, and it is where the sharpest lesson lies. Western excuses are endless. I don't have time. The gym is too far. I can't afford supplements. I'm too tired after work. These sentences are repeated like mantras, each one a justification for doing nothing. To the Western ear, they sound reasonable. To the African athlete, they sound absurd. Consider the African reality. Many athletes there also work long, grueling hours. They come home exhausted, sometimes having eaten only one meal that day, and yet they train. They do not ask if they feel like it. They do not wait for motivation. They know that progress demands action, no matter the circumstance. Imagine telling a man lifting cement dumbbells in Ghana that you cannot train because your gym is 10 minutes away by car. Imagine telling a Nigerian athlete training barefoot on dusty ground that you forgot your headphones. Imagine telling a bodybuilder in Uganda who eats beans for weeks without meat that you can't grow without whey protein. These excuses collapse under the weight of reality. The African example exposes the truth. The West is not held back by lack of resources, but by lack of urgency. Comfort has bred weakness. Because the gym is always open, we think tomorrow is fine. Because food is always available, we take it for granted. Because information is endless, we never act on it. African athletes cannot afford such illusions. For them, every day matters. The rain may wash away tomorrow's training. Hunger may weaken them tomorrow. Work may take more hours next week. So they act today. Their urgency turns scarcity into fuel. And so, the rebuke continues. In Africa, the absence of resources creates determination. In the West, the abundance of resources creates complacency. The difference is not in environment, but in mindset. This rebuke is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. It strips away excuses and leaves only the truth. If you want it badly enough, you will find a way. If you don't, you will find an excuse. The African athlete's life is a mirror held up to ours, forcing us to confront the gap between our words and our actions. And yet, the story does not end here. Because African bodybuilding is not only about struggle, it is also about triumph. Even in the harshest conditions, athletes find ways to compete, to showcase their strength, to inspire their communities. Their competitions may look different from ours, but they carry the same fire, perhaps even more. Every athlete, no matter where he lives, desires recognition. Training in silence is noble, but stepping onto a stage, testing yourself against others, and hearing applause is a universal dream. In the West, competitions are glamorous affairs, bright lights, judges in suits, stages framed with banners of supplement companies. The prizes are trophies, sponsorships, sometimes fame. In Africa, competitions look very different. They may be held in school gyms, on basketball courts, or even on streets closed off for the day. The stage might be a wooden platform, or just a marked-off space on concrete. Judges are not IFBB officials, but respected local athletes. The audience is made up of families, neighbors, children, people who know the competitors personally. And yet, the atmosphere is electric. When an athlete poses, the crowd roars not because of lighting or spectacle, but because they see one of their own on stage. Every flex, every pose is proof of discipline and sacrifice. The applause is not polite, it is heartfelt. The community celebrates not just the body, but the perseverance behind it. For the athletes, these competitions are more than contests. They are validation. Months and years of training in dust and heat culminate in a moment of recognition. Even if the prize is just a medal, a certificate, or a simple handshake, its value is immense, because it represents victory over circumstances. These competitions also play a crucial social role. They show young people that bodybuilding is not just training, It is a path to respect. A boy who watches his neighbor win a local competition sees a new possibility for his own life. He realizes that discipline leads to honor, that strength earns admiration. Competitions plant seeds of aspiration. What is most striking is the purity of these events. Without big sponsors, without financial incentives, without media hype, they become about the essence of sport: effort, respect, and pride. Winning is important, but showing up, performing, and inspiring the community is the true reward. And from these humble stages, some athletes launch themselves onto larger ones. Local competitions are the first steps on a path that sometimes leads to international recognition. They prove that greatness can begin anywhere, even on a dirt lot with homemade weights. The sight of these competitions is moving. Athletes flexing with cement dumbbells backstage, children mimicking poses in the crowd, neighbors chanting names. It is raw, it is real, and it shows that bodybuilding in Africa is not a hobby, but a culture, a source of identity and pride. But some athletes don't stop at local stages. From these beginnings, a few rise to bigger arenas, regional, national, even global competitions. Their journeys prove that African bodybuilding is not just survival, but a path to glory. From dusty lots and homemade weights, some African athletes climb all the way to global stages. Their journeys are nothing short of remarkable because they show that greatness can be forged in the harshest environments. Take the story of Cobus van Niekerk from South Africa. He started like many others, training with improvised weights, far from luxury. He had no professional nutritionist, no supplement sponsors, no high-tech gyms. What he did have was relentless determination. Over the years, that determination carried him from local contests to international stages, eventually earning him the IBFF Universe title. His story is just one of many. Across Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, and South Africa, there are countless examples of men who began in makeshift gyms and rose to become respected competitors. Each story fuels the imagination of the next generation. A young boy sees someone from his own neighborhood, someone who grew up eating the same food and lifting the same concrete dumbbells, step onto a world-class stage, and suddenly the dream becomes real. If he could, so can I. But the path to bigger arenas is filled with obstacles. Competing internationally requires more than muscle. Athletes need visas, travel funds, entry fees, and connections. Many must work double shifts or rely on community fundraising to make the journey. Some sell belongings just to pay for a plane ticket. For them, competing abroad is not just about bodybuilding. It is about proving that poverty does not define destiny. When they finally stand under the bright lights of an international stage, their presence is already a victory. Whether they place first or last, they carry with them the pride of their communities. They embody the message that effort and discipline can carry you from the margins of society to the center of global attention. These journeys matter not only to the athletes themselves, but to everyone who watches. They prove that the slums are not cages, but launching pads. They show that strength forged in scarcity can rival strength forged in abundance. They remind the world that talent is universal, even if opportunity is not. And so, the path to bigger arenas is not just personal triumph, it is cultural symbolism. It declares that Africa is not behind but rising, that its athletes are not disadvantaged but tested, that their struggle produces a purity of effort the world should respect. These success stories inspire not just bodybuilders, but entire communities. They are proof that dedication can change the course of a life. And that is where the story of African bodybuilding becomes bigger than sport. Because for many, it is not just about muscles or medals. It is about hope. In many African communities, opportunities are limited. Poverty, unemployment, and instability cast long shadows over young people's lives. For many, the future seems predetermined, with few ways out. But sport, and bodybuilding in particular, becomes a doorway to possibility. For teenagers growing up in poor neighborhoods, the gym, however simple, offers an alternative to the streets. It provides structure, discipline, and belonging. Instead of drifting toward crime, addiction, or despair, they are pulled into a circle of effort and progress. The gym becomes not just a place to train, but a safe haven, a space where dreams can be born. The power of role models is crucial. Just as Africa has produced football legends like Didier Drogba and Samuel Eto'o, bodybuilding creates its own local heroes. A young boy sees a man from his block, someone who trained on the same dusty ground, earn respect and admiration for his physique. That example lights a fire. It whispers, "You can rise too. You can build something out of nothing." This cycle of inspiration builds communities of hope. Each athlete who succeeds becomes a beacon. His progress proves that discipline pays off. His story offers proof that circumstances do not have the final word. His presence shows that even when the world gives you little, you can create something of immense value. Bodybuilding in this way becomes more than sport. It becomes transformation. It teaches patience because progress is slow. It teaches humility because strength is earned rep by rep. It teaches perseverance because hunger and hardship are constant companions. These lessons do not stay in the gym. They shape how young men face life itself. And when one of their own makes it big, when he competes internationally, or even just dominates a local contest, the impact ripples outward. Children imitate his poses. Teenagers double their efforts. Parents see new possibilities for their sons. Whole neighborhoods gain a sense of pride. Bodybuilding in Africa is not just about physical strength. It is about rewriting the narrative. It tells young people that poverty does not define them. It tells them that discipline and persistence can open doors. It tells them that they too can climb from the dirt into the light. In this way, bodybuilding becomes a social movement as much as a sport. It is a tool for empowerment, a source of identity, a path to dignity. It is hope, made visible in muscle and sweat. And from this hope, we arrive at the final message. The lesson African bodybuilders send not just to their communities, but to the entire world. At the heart of African bodybuilding lies a truth so simple, yet so powerful, that it resonates far beyond the world of sport. Conditions are variable, but desire is constant. In the West, we are surrounded by abundance. Gyms are everywhere, supplements are cheap, programs are free, and food is plentiful. And yet, people continue to search for excuses. No time, no energy, no motivation. In Africa, athletes have none of these resources, and yet they continue to train, day after day, with persistence that shames our complacency. The message they send to the world is not one of pity. They do not ask for sympathy. They do not cry out, "We have nothing." Instead, they declare through their actions, "We have enough, because we have will." This willpower transforms scarcity into creativity. It turns car rims into barbell plates. It turns cement into dumbbells. It turns empty lots into gyms. It turns hunger into discipline. Every obstacle becomes raw material for growth. Every hardship becomes a test that builds strength. The final message is clear. Excuses are illusions. They are comfortable lies we tell ourselves to hide our lack of will. If a man can train barefoot on cracked ground, with hunger in his belly and rusted iron in his hands, then you, surrounded by comfort and convenience, have no excuse. If he can sculpt muscle out of beans and porridge, then you, with your protein shakes in supermarkets, have no excuse. This message cuts deep because it is universal. It is not just about bodybuilding, it is about life. We all face circumstances, challenges, limitations, but those are variables. The constant is desire, the fire inside that says, "I will not stop." African bodybuilders embody this truth in every rep, every set, every drop of sweat. They prove that greatness is not reserved for those with resources, but for those with relentless will. They remind us that progress comes not from waiting for conditions to be perfect, but from acting in the conditions we have. And that is why their story matters. It is not just a story about fitness, it is a story about human potential, about the power of determination, about the refusal to be defeated by circumstance. The final scene is not one of pity, but of inspiration. The African athlete, standing tall under the open sky, muscles forged from struggle, looks at the world and says, "I did it with nothing. What's your excuse?" And with that question, he leaves us no place to hide. There are no excuses left. There is only you and your goal. Everything else can be built, found, or created. The only thing that matters is this: start.